everyone. Good evening. What are Ascension Pioneers? What's Ascension? Our next guest talks a lot about I am. What does she mean by that? She also says we're entering a new cycle this spring. What's that all about? She also emphasizes that our truth is the path that we must take. We're going to talk about that and much, much more tonight. All right, so tonight's Get Off the Couch. I'm going to encourage you, if you're like me, to ask for help if you need it. Someone in my family unexpectedly had a stroke Sunday evening, so I wake up to a text Monday morning. You know, we're in the hospital, this is what's going on, and none of the typical symptoms for stroke, so it was quite a shock, and they're pretty young. And that night I ended up seeing Lisa Transcendence Brown, who, you know, I talk a lot about, who's been on the show, and my mentor, and actually Lisa introduced me to Polona and was like, you've got to get this woman on your show. So when we were working through some things, it came up that I have difficulty asking for help. I don't know, it might be a German thing, but, you know, I see with my relative in the hospital, they're kind of don't want us to visit or kind of closing themselves off, and I see that pattern in them as well. And, you know, when you don't ask for help, that's a pride issue. So I'm going to encourage you, if you're like me and have trouble asking for help, challenge yourself this week. And even if it's something small, just ask for help. Because remember, we're all in this together. We're all part of a community. And it's nothing wrong. It doesn't make you less, or being vulnerable and asking for help doesn't take away for who you are. So I'm going to encourage you to ask for help this week. Okay, now I'm going to tell you about tonight's guest. I'm super excited. She is our first guest from Europe. She's a real trooper because she's up in the middle of the night here. She is Polona Somrak, and she's from Slovenia, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. She had her awakening in 2010, so we really aren't going to go into a lot of detail about what happened to her. But what she discovered is she is an Ascension Pioneer, which we're going to get into all that good stuff tonight. And so her mission, her role is to get Ascension Pioneers, create this wonderful community about divine love and joy and empowerment and spiritual awareness. And so her mission has been to gather all that. And so we're going to learn about that tonight. So welcome, Polona.
Hey, thank you. Welcome.
We're very excited to have you here. And again, thanks for being a trooper and getting up in the middle of the night. So let's get started. What is Ascension Pioneers? What are Ascension Pioneers? And maybe bring in what's Ascension, because we hear that word a lot, but what exactly is that and what does it mean?
Hey, thank you for asking me that basic, crucial question. Well, Ascension Pioneers is just a word I use for, you know, what many people can call, you know, it's like, I feel this is the first wave of us awakening souls who are awakening to our true divinity. And, you know, everyone uses their own name, and this is the name that came to me. Because all over the world, the phenomenon that's happening is everyone is following their spirit and starting their own communities and, you know, gathering, like you say, the troops, the tribe. So this is the kind of like, it came to me through my first automatic writing. And then I started writing more and more about these things. Ascension is, it can mean different things to different people in different stages of awareness. But what it means to me in real spirit is us on earth remembering who we truly are and then bringing all the divine potential into our bodies. Because ascension is also descension when you look at it from a real core perspective. But actually what it also is, it's a pure chemical process. You know, we're mechanical beings. We're also chemical beings. We have a certain chemistry in our body. So with ascension, what is happening when all this light of our spirit is coming through our bodies, which of course needs to happen through us embracing our soul first. I talk about it a lot, you know, spirit being the male aspect of creation, the soul being the feminine counterpart. And through the feminine, the womb, you know, we embrace our spirit and we start literally downloading it. And then all this light that's coming into our bodies is actually triggering a chemical process, a light process that starts illuminating our bodies. And that's why, you know, many used to call in ancient times ascension also, you know, was associated with the halo around certain people and saints and prophets. And basically it's a very natural thing. It's a very organic thing that happens once we start opening up to our spirit, through our soul.
You know,
So that's how I would describe it. And through that, you're becoming authentic because you're literally starting to vibrate your core signature, your magnetic resonance that you hold as a light being.
now I follow you on Facebook. I try to read all your posts because you're in a different time zone. Most of the time I actually can catch them. But as I've been thinking about the interview with you, I was wondering, I don't know if you would have heard of this, but was a series here in the U.S. called Left Behind. And it was kind of, people believe that when Christians, and correct me if I'm wrong, audience, I know you will, but my understanding is people believe when Christ comes that people would just automatically leave their bodies and with the second coming of Christ. Was some people who are going to ascend, would that happen to them? Like they just die or they just become a light being? Or am I completely off here? But that question popped into my head.
Yeah, but that's a good question because a lot of people still don't understand that the core mechanics of the ascension. And for example, what he was really coming here to teach is how you become this, how you anchor, like I call, embodying divine love in the physical. You know, we already are this in spirit. You know, everyone's saying ascending, but we are already ascended because we are born as an individualized unit of source. We're all individual source aspects, you know, through our soul extensions. So we're already there. We are already divine love. But what we are learning here basically as humans is how to integrate that and also emanate this in the physical. So for me, what Jesus the Christ was really teaching is he was showing the way, you know, through love. He was actually teaching about divine love and all the principles that come along with it for us to anchor this love, because he talked a lot about purity. And what is given to people through these, I call them false teachings, because they kind of make you believe that you can just ascend by some entity coming or a certain being coming, and then, you know, everything changes. But this doesn't work, like I said, because if you see yourself as an individualized unit of source, a beautiful source extension of divine love, everything that's happening needs to happen through you, because you have all that in you already, because you're source being. Everyone is. It just depends, you know, where souls are in their evolutionary journey. So basically, this has nothing to do with something happening externally outside of us. Like I said, it's a mechanical and chemical process, physical process at the end, you know, because we exist as beings on many levels. So in the most physical sense, we start transforming our body. But what is happening here is a lot of people believe that ascension is going into the light body. Of course, on a certain stage, that is also part of the process. But how I feel, and how many now also feel, is that first process starts with us getting this light that we are into the physical. It's not, you know, just shifting this and then you vibrate away somewhere into this realm, because like I said, you're already there. It's just you choosing a path that is aligned with you, like I said, bringing all that into the physical, because at the moment we're still very much physical beings, you know, and this ascension process doesn't just happen like poof, you know, and you shift, and there isn't no second coming in a way of something or someone coming externally, because ascension cannot happen externally, because all is actually unfolding in this temple, in this body. So that will be my answer here.
I called this the Eckhart Tolle special because I ask for it all the time. I want the one night of darkness of the soul and then to wake up enlightened and have everything groovy. Yeah. I keep asking and I don't get it. Now, at the beginning of the show, you mentioned remembering. So can you talk about that? Who are we remembering that we are?
Yeah, I call this divine remembrance. I would say this is the most important, crucial component in descension process as well. I would rather, you know, instead of the word ascension, I use it because so many people are drawn to the word. But basically, I would rather say the embodiment of divine love, because that's all of our purpose, basically. Except, like I said, not everyone remembers. It remembers that we're all here to remember divine love and then bring it into our bodies. So divine remembrance, why is it so important? Because everything you go through, like you said, you described you want this sometimes. But it doesn't happen with us feeding ourselves with external information. You know, there's so much teachings around the planet, but it's not enough. When that's why I said in my own description and journey was this remembrance started coming through me when I started doing nomadic writings, when I started feeling myself, when I really started feeling my soul. And these are just like wake up calls, soul sending in light packages. So through light, you actually start remembering from within. We all have like this written in our DNA. So a lot of people already say everything you need to know is already here. And why a part of my purpose is also to guide people within, to help them push. It's all within. And it cannot happen outside of you. That's why divine remembrance for me, it means when you literally start feeling all that maybe once was coming externally, it's just there to trigger you, to help you awaken. But divine remembrance, when you really start doing the body shift, the transformation in your body, when you're alchemizing yourself through that, it cannot happen without you really feeling that inside of you. Because otherwise, if it's coming outside of you, it's just information. When it comes through you, it's your own inner knowing. It's feeling, and it brings you to wisdom. So
I think that's so important because we all have everything we need in here, but we sometimes forget that. In your line of work, what have you found are the biggest stumbling blocks for people remembering that they are divine love?
First of all, thank you for asking me that. And I really wouldn't call that work, because a lot of us who are really tuning into ourselves, who are working basically from our soul, this isn't really work. It's just following the bliss. And I'm trying to help people to show them that it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It can really be a simple process of letting go and just, like I said, feel yourself while you're here and then doing that, because no one else can do it for you, right? So the biggest roadblock as to how I see it is when people ask me all those sorts of questions, they do. A lot of them still seek externally, outside of them. But like I said before, if you keep doing that, you're really disempowering yourself. You're not allowing that light of ascension through your own ascension mechanism that gets triggered once you start the awakening process. It really isn't feeding that. It's just you trying to, project outwardly this ascension process that's actually happening in your body. So everything that you have is already within you. And I just try to, push people. Sometimes people are not really satisfied when you don't give them the answers, when sometimes they want you to help them understand. But what we can do here with one another is just kind of nudge ourselves to just serve as sources of upliftment and show. So how I would say, what I do is not really work. It's just showing a template of this higher potential that everyone has within them. And then it's, up to individual soul choices, what everyone chooses. But like I say, the biggest roadblock naturally would be people, first of all, not trusting themselves. And because they don't trust themselves, they kind of block this, they block their vertical alignment we all have with source. And they try to seek these answers externally, try to feed themselves horizontally, which is actually just the second phase, because first we need to plug in, vertically and then put it out horizontally. So sometimes they want to do it vice versa. But how I've seen it now, a lot of people are actually realizing that and are, shifting to the right way of doing this.
Now, I want to remind all our viewers, if you have a question for Polona, you can chat it, Skype, or call in at 919-518-9773, and we'll get it asked. Now, are we all Ascension Pioneers, or just some of us?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I would say when I feel Ascension Pioneers, the word, how it vibrates for me is the, we have, even in nature, we have waves of things coming in. Even in creation, we have cycles of growth, cycles of expansion, cycles of time. Everything in creation is about cycles. Same goes with ascension. It's like Ascension Pioneers, when I use this word, is people who are doing this now in this cycle, who are opening up to their divinity, to their highest potential, and they're bringing it forth into their bodies. But in a way, how you ask it, of course.
Oh. Well, we're going to get Amnon back. Not Amnon, Polona. We'll get her back here in a second. I want to remind you, if you have a question for Polona, You can call us at 919-518-9773 or Skype. Skype in or chat a question. I'm happy to ask it. And while we're waiting for Polona, I just want to remind everyone, we here at Reawaken Your Brilliance have started some awesome online Thrive classes. And the next one is going to be on overcoming procrastination. So if you're one of these Ascension Pioneers and light workers and can't seem to get it going, or, you know, just struggle in other areas where you have stuff that you want to do and you're supposed to do all this great work and can't get motivated, if you check out on our events page, there's a link right here, and you get a discount by watching the show. And trust me, I'm a research queen. I've priced it out. You can't find anything at this price with the quality of workshop people that we have. We have Geraldine Thomas, who's of Hoarders, who's a professional organizer. We have psychologist Susan Orenstein, and we have spiritual author Julia Rogers Hamrick. So I'm going to encourage you, you know, if you're looking to overcome procrastination, do it and hurry up, because this Sunday the early bird special ends. And we're working, as I said, Polona is our first European guest. Super excited to have her on, and she's a trooper because she's getting up at the middle of the night, and we're going to try to get her back here. And I want to remind everyone, hey, if you have a question, where do you stand on this? Do you believe that you're an Ascension Pioneer? Where are you in this process? I would say I'm not quite there yet. I like to say I'm a constant work in progress and having lots of light come in, working on myself. I think I'm about to enter the period I've been learning from Lisa and some other people, that you kind of start to hit this wall and get sleepy. And I'm in that process, kind of seeing some interesting things in my life, and am looking forward to it. It's, you know, just one of those things. You just have to definitely go with the flow on that, and you can resist it, but I'm guessing if I try to resist, that it'll be a lot harder if we do it that way. So we're still working to get Polona back. We'll see what's going on, and let's see. We have from Carrie. We have an Nefertiti. There's someone will have to remind me. Isn't that the Egyptian queen? Great name there. Yay, sleepy. Although, luckily, I'm not sleepy right now. That would not be good. And Carrie says you have a great psychic on this site too. That would be Carrie, who was a guest last week on the show and has her show here Sunday on Nissan Communication Network, which is Carrie's Psychic Cafe, where she brings you messages from the other side. So, all right. We're still trying to get Sylvania back. And as always, I will see we have Debbie here on chat. If it's a Debbie I know, I love and welcome any suggestions for guests. From our viewers, Debbie suggested someone really great. We're going to have Glenn Harrod from the UK on. We're getting that together, and he's going to be on. And I am always open to your suggestion. We've got Polona back. Hey.
Weird thing, my computer just plugged off for no reason.
You know what? It's all good. So I'll have to remember.
I'm so sorry. This is like a weird night. Hey, it is the eclipse, you know, so I guess things are happening in weird sense.
We just have to trust that it's part of the... You know what, Polona? Actually, I need to apologize. The universe keeps telling me how I'm too type A and I got to go with the flow, and so... The universe is like, hey, we're going to make you really go with the flow. So maybe they'll let us enjoy the rest of the interview, because I know there's lots of important stuff we got to talk to you about. So let's see where we were. We were talking about whether or not everyone is an Ascension Pioneer, and you talked about the process. I also had another question for you. I'd like you to talk about, in your writings, I see you talk a lot about I am. In capital letters. And I was reading the other day, I don't know if you know who Jay-Z is. He's a rapper here in the U.S. I can't tell you. I know he's Beyonce's husband. I couldn't tell you what he's saying, but apparently when he does a concert, he wants people going, Hava, Hava, which my understanding is a reference to Jesus and I am. And so a lot of people are up in arms about that. And so I want you to talk about what you mean when you say I am.
Well, this has nothing to do with Jesus. Jesus was just one of the beautiful teachers here on earth, and he's one of the beautiful souls who came here to show the alternative. So like I said, Ascension Pioneers are those who are living and then showing others this alternative. And to answer your previous questions, yes, in this terms, everyone who starts remembering is an Ascension Pioneer. But yeah, when I say the I am, I'm referring to the I am presence, which is our individualized God presence, our source self. And we're all coming from that same one light. But then, like I said, we're unique. We each have this individualized presence. When I say I am, it's not, the little ego I self. It's the I am, your God particle, your creation self, the way your first, when you started this journey as fully as spirit and then starting to become this individualized soul aspect. So the I am is actually our spirit self. And like I said, we can really start tuning into our spirit self once we make the connection with our soul. And that means living in the heart, because most people still don't know that this doesn't mean just that you're a heartfelt person and you're a nice person. It literally means living from the heart, which sometimes it's nothing to do with gentleness. It has to do with really being true to that truth that starts flowing through you. Sometimes you have to be very, very blunt in things. You just really live from the heart, from your pure truth. And that, I think that's where you put the name of the interview, to listen to yourself and this truth that starts pouring through you. And the heart is like, I think it was in Jesus' teachings as well, the sacred heart, the symbolism that was presented. He was referring to the sacred heart, our higher heart. Sometimes I call this our cosmic heart, that we actually activate once we start fusing with our soul. Lately, I did a light activation about embodying our soul. And you can do many different things to establish this connection. But there needs to be a lot of, like I say, silence time to hear yourself, because a lot of people are so much connected to all the environment, to all that is happening. They literally cannot plug themselves out of it to really plug in to what is really important, to your inner home. So when I say I am, basically through that heart opening, through living really through purity and your self-authenticity, you open up to your spirit presence, which is the I am. So for me, in my path, it became really obvious that that's the part that I really need to say a lot, state a lot. Because when you say I am, you really just, you have no other name in the end. You just I am. And you really, when I say it, for me, it means, like I say, to each their own. But when I say it in such capital letters, it means every time I do it, I connect to my light, that's how I feel it. But, each of us, we need to feel for ourselves what feels good on our path, because although it's one path of ascension, there's many variation of it, many ways how we all do it,
How do we know if we're living from our heart, coming from our heart, standing on our truth? How do we know that? And if someone is new to this process, and, we talked earlier a little bit about not hearing that wisdom from within and with external distractions, what suggestions would you have to someone just starting to learn how to listen?
Yeah, this is the important part, because when you're in communion with the divine, even when we're communicating with people, sometimes people have this thing that communication is what they think it is, but communication always is communication when it's both-sided and when it's in great flow and balance. So the same goes for communication with the divine. We need to establish first listening, and then, most people, what they do, they say, I'm praying, and they're constantly talking, and they say nothing's happening because they're not really listening. They just keep shouting out what they want, what they need, instead of just coming into a silence, that void space where everything is there. In the silence, you have all the questions answered. Everything is there. You feel yourself. So basically, when you start living from the heart, how you will know is you will feel things. You will just have those inner knowings that feel so true to you. Kind of like I say, I use this phrase, something that no one can take away from you, because it's that strong. So that's the first indicator. You'll become more introverted. You'll become more a feeler. That doesn't mean that you need to plug out of, external reality, but just you will shift through feeling things from within to without. Most people who are in a stage of not really being awakened, as they react to reality, they think it's all coming from outside of themselves. And, you see a reflection of you, or you're in a relationship, and you come at that thing based from within, from without. And then in the shift, what happens, you become this neutral observer, how I call it. Everything you see, it's like an extension of you. So that's like a second indicator, is you feel the world and the reality from within to without. You totally detach yourself. And in every single thing, you will see a reflection, you will see a message for you. So basically, you're living like an extension of this entire reality, and you feel all of it, and you feel as one with it. But at the same time, you're also individualized. That is something that is really important here, because a lot of people talk about oneness. It's all good and fine. We are all one. We all come from the same source. But we cannot forget, this is very important in the Ascension journey, that we're also individualized source aspect. So we're very unique, and it's our uniqueness we're remembering through this divine remembrance and through living authentically. So which is, like I say, third indicator is very important, because living through the heart means that you become very authentic. So that means things that come through you, through your soul infusion, simply the old starts falling off, because you don't no longer recognize yourself in it. Your actions don't become that of your physical self, or identification with the mind or the body or with your thoughts or emotions. It starts coming from within. So you kind of shift your focus to feeling. It's very hard to describe, because it's a very natural and organic thing. Everyone who's in the process will know, because they know how they felt before and how they feel now. For me, I was always a feeling being. I always just knew when something was not right. I didn't do it. I didn't resonate. But a lot of people, because of those old beliefs and convictions they had, and those dogmas, they just don't allow themselves to naturally plug into what just feels right to them. That's the whole essence. But it needs to be very organic, because no one can tell you whether you feel right. You just really need to come into that adulthood of accepting who you really are, and then trusting that what you're feeling right is right. And I got to say this, and everything that you feel, because a lot of people are afraid to come into terms of embracing what they feel or making choices. Everything what you feel in any given moment is right for you. Even if in moment you might say, oh, but it's coming from your lower self, or from identification with ego. Even that, in its essence, will serve a purpose for further along, because it's all kind of like this grand game of everything playing itself out perfectly, so that the soul can remember. Soul places all these filters and scenarios and things that they will reflect back. So once you're ready, you will start remembering, but like I said, from within.
Now, would you say that when we are coming from that soul, then the ego is not involved at all, right? Like the ego's completely to the side, because doesn't the ego kind of keep us separate from the soul, or what are your thoughts on that?
No, I wouldn't say that, because a lot of people in the New Age were saying that we need to kill our ego, and that is not possible, because the ego is the part of us that is also divine. There is nothing that is not of the divine essence. That is what many people still do not understand, but many do, because there's a lot of awakening happening on the planet, and I'm witness to that through all the people that I communicate with. The ego is basically the part of us, how it's meant to be designed through divine sacredness and principles. The ego is a part of us that keeps us in this body, that kind of helps our body, that controls our body. It's just that our identification with the ego as our, the role that we kind of give it became a bit misled, it became a bit off, because if we know how to work with our ego, what we're doing basically in Ascension is we're just illuminating our ego. We're basically remembering the purpose that it serves for. Like when we're remembering our inner child and we have a divine feminine and masculine, the same goes with ego. Once you start become really aware of who you are, you will embrace all the parts of your multidimensional beingness, and you will see your ego, and you will start understanding the purpose, the nature that it serves. Because it's here to kind of keep you oriented. Sometimes, like it's like a body thing. It's like a mechanism of the body to be and operate and function in this world. But once you start coming into Ascension, so basically downloading and connecting with the higher version of you, ego will change its direction. It will change the meaning. How we like to say truth is different and different levels of awareness. Well, same goes with ego. Ego kind of transcends, but it's still there. It's just, ego is not what many people think it is, and it's not a bad thing. But a lot of us, when we start awakening, we start judging the ego, and we say, oh, it's bad, I'm not supposed to come from ego. And it's not true. You're supposed to know how to master your ego. The same goes with fear. You're not supposed to deny it or suppress it. You're supposed to look at, see what it serves for and what it has served you for in your life, for everything that you come to do, and to realize and what awarenesses you come into, and then you master it. So basically what's happening in ascension process, the ego is becoming fused with soul. So the soul kind of starts leading the way. Ego no longer leads the way because we no longer identify ourselves with it. But it's not that we kill it, because then we wouldn't actually have this body.
I'm not ready for that. I got some more stuff to do before I leave the earth. Now talk a little bit about what you're doing with Ascension Pioneers, because you've created a community here. And so is part of that to show, because I know I've definitely have felt at times in my life alone because I was weird or, you know, into all this stuff, and people are like, you're just very strange. And so part of the idea I get, I mean, I feel like you serve as a light to show people, you know, you're not alone, you're not weird, this is a process that's going on. So talk a little bit about that and the community that you want to create or have created.
Thank you. Well, the community is actually how I see it. It's creating itself. You know, I was just the initiator. I was just the instigator. So because one of the reasons was for me, you know, was my own desire to connect with people in this level. But then on a certain level of my evolution of the soul here on earth was I came into terms that it's enough for you to embrace yourself as much that you really will need external confirmations and people and communities, even that. When you will be involved in these relations and connections we all have, and we're discovering we don't just have them locally, we have them all around the world. A lot of soul groups are uniting, and you know, people who just totally resonate with each other in their hearts and are finding themselves. How I feel this process, why is it so important? Because when we come together, we sort of trigger each other, you know, like we're all ripples, we're all waves, because we're all one, you know, that's the part of oneness that we are. We all have a very deep impact on our lives, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't know at the time why I was so driven to always address Ascension Pioneers and people who are starting to remember this in this first wave, and then those who will follow. And why it's so important for all of us to leave this legacy also for the future generations, you know, and children who are being born now, who are very pure souls, who also come here to assist with the whole transformation of the planet that's happening. So this is, again, it's a very natural process that's happening. You know, it's like those nerve systems that, you know, once one is triggered, then another one can start, you know, operating. And so it goes. It's like a ripple effect. So a lot of communities I see are being formed on the planet. Mine is just, you know, in my circle, but I like mostly for people to understand that this is not because we feel alone, or, you know, a lot of us were different when we were growing up. That's just one part of the equation. The second part is, like I say, this connecting like synapses, you know, in the nerve system, because together our divine remembrance is so much stronger, because each of us holds a tiny particle, this piece of the puzzle that we're now kind of bringing together collectively. So that's why I feel it's so important for a community to, you know, to have this feeling of also to share, you know, with one another in a way that each of us has our own unique gifts. For example, mine is to be this divine messenger. Someone else is amazing with something else. And when we come together, we create wholeness in how we function as human species. So I think that's very important in this journey.
We have a nice comment here from Debbie who says, I have seen this as igniting each other.
Yeah.
And I want to remind you, if you have a question for Polona, chat it and I will ask it, or call us at 919-518-9773 or Skype Computers 2K Voice. So would you say that everyone is awakening? I'm trying to think if I could say someone on the world stage that perhaps most of us would say, don't quite think they're awakening, think they're kind of really in the old paradigm or whatever you want to call it. Do you believe that we all at some level are awakening? And are people like Ascension Pioneers, are they coming together enough that that's going to help transform the earth, transform our lives for those who are, let's say, are perhaps less awakened?
Well, how I would say is there is no such thing as more or less awakened, because awakening is a continuous process. You know, I just started it in 2010, but it keeps going and going. You know, as spirit beings, we flow in the spiral of life and creation, and it's always an upward and inward journey, and it's always up and, you know, around and around. And there's always something to learn in creation. There's always something new to create. So what's happening here is, how I feel it is, it has to do a lot with soul choice. So people who just started the awakening, I remember when I was there at the beginning, you're like, oh, you wish everyone to know about this. You just want to share it with the whole world. And sometimes what people do is they're enclosed in these close family circles, and they want to, help their family members to also awake. And they're really coming into this resistance because they're like, oh, maybe they don't want to awake, And that's the kind of decision that we need to respect. Because this is the thing, when we really awaken to the higher truth, which is the truth of evolution, of every soul has its stage, and souls fluctuate, and they all grow in their own choice, because that's the whole thing of being an individualized aspect of source. The soul aspect learns how they choose to learn. It's this gift to learn how you wish to. So if you look at it that way, when you're coming from this perspective, you will see that there is no, the need for everyone to awaken. It is more of an inward process to understand why you're doing this, why you're there now in this evolutionary circle and cycle of your growth, of your opening. And when you will be so much living within, you will see that all you can do is share this light, and those who will be ready, who are also there on this path, will start remembering with you, will start sharing with you, and then so it goes on. But if you look at it from a very neutral perspective, Earth is a conglomerate of many different soul awarenesses, many different stages of evolution. So you can see it like if you would be having, children in kindergarten, and someone would come and would say, now you all need to come to this level. Now you all need to go to high school. It's not very natural, right? Because this growth happens in cycles. And awareness cannot be forced. As you're maturing on this path of the soul, it happens naturally. Everything does. So when you look at Earth having all these different soul awarenesses and stages, and it's a very beautiful process, but it's a very natural thing. It's not coming from an understanding of creation itself to think that in an instant everyone will be at the same point. Because we can't be, because we're all in our individual aspect of growing, into our source self.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, and I have learned some things over the years, say I thought of an example, I can't pronounce his name, but the leader of North Korea, say someone like the leader of North Korea or leader of Syria that have, suppressive regimes and, that are brutal dictators. So your point would be to step back and be neutral and be like, that's where they are in their soul's process. They've chosen to learn this way, and that they are ascending at their own pace, but they're still ascending because of the spiral. Is that correct?
Yeah, you see, the thing is, when you're really coming from that feeling through spirit, which, like I said, it's a process, and it happens once you start being and resonating with purity in all of your. It's like purity to me is very connected with neutrality. You kind of transcend the dualistic nature that was shown to humanity for so long, and you just revert to another game. You just say what's happening in Ascension is you just move yourself away from that system, which is control, fear, what's happening in the global, and a lot of that, and the whole drama, and everything that's being shown to you as it is. This is the reality, and then you move away from it, and then, like I said, you start remembering that you yourself are a creator, and that you're only responsible for yourself, that you cannot be responsible for others. But what others, the role that they're playing, for example, you've shown the example with these leaders who are not vibrating in this frequency of love right now. Their mission, how I see it, is also multidimensional, like all of ours. And a part of there is to show, especially those who are awakening, once you have the suppressor, you will also have the oppressor. And sometimes, soul will always grow through contractions. First it contracts and then it expands. It's like a natural thing, like a heartbeat. Everything to have as an understanding already lies in our bodies, how they function. For example, the heart, like I said, contracts and then it expands. The breath, this is the breath of life, this is the breath of creation. It's all the same. It's the macrocosm, within the microcosm, and so vice versa. So when we become aware of that, we see the purpose of all these people of all the individuals serving on earth. But what we will also see is that there's many types of stories happening right now on earth. There's a lot of different karmas being played out. There's a lot of different scenarios. But when we start the ascension journey, that is inward journey, we will see that it doesn't really matter for us, because we're remembering, we're creating our own reality. So basically we're coexisting on earth with many different types and groups. But once you start this inner journey, you will see that only what you start putting out there will come back to you. So there's people who are in this journey that won't even come into terms with war, poverty, because they vibrate a different sort of essence. So it's a matter, like I say, of choice. It's very neutral. You just have to choose and play your own game. And that's the freedom of this choice. That's all there is.
We had a nice comment here from Nefertiti, who said, you can look at it as they agreed to come here to be the trigger for others to ascend.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, yeah, I think thank you for sharing that. You also talk, I think in a blog or something that I read, that we're entering a new cycle this spring. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Yeah, basically this is a thing of, it's not, how would I describe this? It's not something that's just a given. Nothing in the ascension process is given, like you're not giving a free pass and you said, okay, this is the ascension ticket, now go, take it. There's no piggyback ride. We all need to do our inner work. And this starts with all the releasing we're going through. So there was a lot of releasing already prior to 2012. And 2012, the 21st December that so many have been talking about, it's not just like this made up thing. It was actually a portal of light, a gateway that started anchoring this divine light from within to without. Earth itself, was starting another journey. And it all started with 2012. But because, every astrologer would tell you, and here how we measure when a new year begins is actually when the spring begins, when an astrological year begins, which is with the Aries. So that's why even through my own inner knowing came this feeling, this sensation that, oh gosh, we really are. I felt like we're 1 year old, because from the terms of not looking things linearly, from the linear perspective, but from a feeling mode, which many people are now shifting into. And like I said, it's not a thing that is rational, that can be explained, it can be felt. In this perspective, you actually feel that the 2012 gateway opened up something new, and you don't even know how to describe it. You just feel new. How you're creating, how you're magnetizing things, how things are, showing themselves to you, they're different. You don't know why, it just feels different. So with this spring, after all the releasing we had, because, every gateway that opens up so much light will also bring all that still needs to come to the light. So basically what was hidden and what was in the shadow before. And that's what we're all now doing in our bodies, this inner work, because our bodies are vehicles that had a lot of beliefs and patterns and core wounds, which each of us on this ascension journey needs to address on their own. It's kind of like the responsibility we take with this body that we have embodied. And yeah, about this new cycle, it sort of feels like Earth, even in nature, because if you're a very neutral observer, you will plug yourself into nature. Nature is Mother Earth, it's Gaia, it's the being, the planetary celestial being we all reside in. You will feel Mother Earth, you will feel her process, and then you also shifting with her. So what's happening, it's like this year that started with spring astrologically. It brings this newness that a lot of us has difficult to explain, because it's not a thing you can explain. It's just we're shifting to taking our power back as co-creator beings, and a lot of us who are facing our fears, like I say, and releasing all that does not serve us in our highest interest and our highest spirit potential. We're actually, through that releasing, we're starting to fully operate as we are, because up until this point, we haven't been really operating from our highest potential. We weren't really taking all of our soul powers, through these divine essences. We've been talking about all this, but now it's actually really being felt, and our bodies are changing very much as well.
Well, we have Gaia here in the studio. One of Amnon's dogs is named Gaia. So we won't show her. She's hanging out in the chair over there. What do you mean when you talk about soul power? Because I think a lot of people think traditional power meaning really wealthy or being president of the United States or something like that. But what is soul power?
Mhm. You know, a lot of people say our true power lies in our vulnerability. So soul power is because the soul is the feminine aspect of creation. The feminine energy is the embracing, it's the womb, it's the empty space. It's the space of full surrendering. It's the space, we all have, as beings, we have a magnetic and static energy. We have these two polarized aspects of us that create each on their own. But what's happening now is a lot of us on this journey, we're coming into this completion, this fusion of our divine feminine and masculine. So soul power, the soul is the feminine essence. So this actually means that people are now awakening to the fact that it doesn't have to be an upstream kind of swim. It doesn't have to be hard. We don't have to create through force, because a lot of people are still in that doing, forcing mode and swimming against the stream. And this really creates a lot of friction, creates a lot of energy that needs to be put out there instead of just tuning into source energy and let everything else unfold naturally. So soul power basically is connected with vulnerability, with the strength of a feminine, which is allowance, it's receptiveness, it's creating the space of void, the womb that then fills everything in anew with new light, which I call inviting then the divine feminine, the divine masculine. So when the feminine is being really emptied out, because this is not just, feminine and masculine as we might have understood it here on earth up until now. This is divine feminine and divine masculine, which are the basic principles in creation. So how we're all birthed as well. So the soul power is realizing that you are both. You are the divine feminine aspect and the masculine. So you will see you no longer need to push things to happen to control. You will just keep surrendering. And you will know how to be in that space of void. A lot of people who are doing the conscious clearing now and all the releasing are then, after all the releasing, finding themselves in this null space. It's like a 0 point, and they don't know this feeling because up until now you had all these patterns and beliefs and people telling you what to do, or the system telling you what to do, and you were kind of like conforming and thinking, okay, so all this was filled up. And once you release all of this, what comes as a result is this emptiness, this void. And in this silence, in this void, you will actually be hearing the soul aspect of yours, which will kind of start taking the lead and telling you to trust all along the journey, to just have that strong knowing, which a lot of people call faith. It's a beautiful word. And then through that, through embracing that, letting go, and just really not just believing it, but you have to really feel it, that everything is as it should be. Everything is unfolding once you're really plugging in and just releasing all to your higher aspect of you through the soul. And then you invite the divine masculine, which is the active part in us, the one to take action. But what we will be doing is feeling ourselves with not anymore, beliefs, but real action from spirit, which is always in divine timing, in divine order, and that which is so natural to us. Because human beings, we're very organic beings, we're nature beings. And we're coming again into terms with the simplicity of living through that way, which is our divine self.
What advice would you have for recovering type A personalities and advising us how to allow instead of doing?
Well, I usually don't give advice because I say advice is of the old way. You can just show the way. What I would recommend, though, for just implementing in daily life things that get you out of your comfort zone. Because like I say, the soul will always expand once you contract a bit and then you expand. So things that will get you out of that comfort zone. I remember a year ago, I think I wrote this down, like every day do, for example, 3 things that you would normally do. Get out of that routine. This is very important for the soul because the soul, true nature is to constantly be in movement. The soul part is infinite. Our spirit is eternal. So the soul is the one who will always explore the creation, always be creative, very creative, essence of ours.
So I would recommend for those who say, oh, I don't know how to do this. First of all, stop telling yourself this is the only way you know how. Because a lot of people, even when they write to me, they define themselves. And they keep saying words about themselves. First of all, you got to stop doing that, because it's really not helping you if you keep putting yourself in a box. Like people say, oh, I know I'm not there yet, or I know I'm not as wise, or I know I'm maybe just at the beginning. They keep saying this to themselves. What we should be focusing on is, I'm always where I need to be. I'm always perfect in every stage, in every cycle. And like I say, every time try to get yourself out of that box with actions, with your words, with your deeds. They all matter because we exist on all these levels.
I love that. But just so you know, every time we have a technical issue and I lose a guest, that's my opportunity. That's one, it's a fear. It puts me in stress mode. So it's just, you just have to kind of go with it and allow it and trust that everything is happening as it should. Now, I want to remind everyone, if you have a question for Polona, chat it in or call 919-518-9773 or Skype in at Computers 2K Voice. One quote that I found that you wrote I loved, called "Depression is suppression." What do you mean by that? Because I think so many people suffer from depression. And I know there were parts of my life when I considered myself depressed. Talk about that.
Thank you. Well, I think all of us on this journey went through a certain phase of our lives that felt maybe more depressive, and I was as well, just prior to my awakening. Like I say, these are our wake-up calls. We're in contraction mode because contraction serves for us to feel that maybe there's an opposite to this. Maybe I can set myself free. And these things are all kind of like I said, mechanisms of souls to help your human side remember, right? So our soul calling you home constantly. But once you become more aware, you will start researching yourself. You will start not analyzing. That's no good, because that's coming from the mind, but just tuning into your being and sense, okay, why is this happening in my life? Why am I creating this? Because nothing is just happening. We're creating. And same goes for depression. If we look at the depression strictly from awareness point of view, which is what I look at, there's many layers to many things, but I look at everything from the, view of awareness. So suppression is basically desensitizing yourself. We're sentient beings. Human beings are sentient beings. And a lot of people say, emotions make you feel so much hurt, and they can make you feel tremendous amounts of pain if you allow it. And that's also a way some souls choose to learn, through pain. Like I say, again, that contraction in order to expand. So it's all very neutral when you look at it like that. We don't like to see someone who suffers and we say, oh my gosh, look at them, they're suffering. And we think that's compassion. No, compassion is basically higher understanding. When you will see the divinity in everyone, no matter where they are in their journey and evolution, whether they choose to suffer or not, So what I feel here is a lot of people have been going through so much that at some point they just put a stop button. They sort of start desensitizing themselves, and they're not in tune with their feeling side of life anymore. But emotions are very important. I would say that emotions serve the most in this ascension awakening, that trigger and that starts happening within you once you start awakening, because they're so strong, they're so intense, and the nature of human emotions is basically very important. They're not to be put down, they're not to be negated, they're to be heard, because emotions will actually show you the way to what you're still illuminating in yourself. So when you suppress them, you create this resistance. And the longer, like you imagine having this bottle, the longer you suppress something, the more resistance you actually create. And a lot of people who are severely depressed basically have that kind of like reversal. You always have to think in terms of reversal. So there's a lot of built up anger, angst, beneath all that surface. And at a certain point, you will just have to put that cork out of the bottle and start seeing what's there, because otherwise, ascension is, like I say, it's a mechanism, and because we operate on many levels and we have many energetic bodies, not just physical, mental, emotional, we have many bodies. And it doesn't just go, okay, I'm illuminating my thoughts, so everybody's focusing on your, align your thoughts, blah, blah, positive thinking, and then you're ignoring your emotions. Ascension is happening on all levels, to the very core human
basically physical level, which is why people are changing their diet so much, because that is also a very important part of this process.
Now, there are a couple questions I like to ask each guest. The first one is, what advice would you have to someone struggling out there? You know, maybe they're going through a divorce or they just lost their job and all this talk about ascension's kind of overwhelming. What would you say to them?
Okay, again, like I say, I don't share advice, but I will share upliftment. So here's the thing. If you're going through something, I always ask people questions, you know, to kind of help someone to lead them back within. I like to ask them questions. First one would be, why do you believe? What part of you inside still believes that it has to be difficult? What part of you believes that needs to be a struggle? What part of you still wishes to swim against the stream? And then imagine yourself just letting go, all of that, just throwing yourself off the cliff, which was a dream I had recently, and just, you know, out of curiosity, see the other version. You know, like I say, me as an ascension guide, I cannot share advice, I cannot give people answers, but I can show an alternative. But I cannot really show it if I don't live it myself. Like I said, it has a lot to do with embodiment. So I would say, ask yourself these very crucial questions and know that the answer is already contained within the question itself. So if you're already asking yourself this question, the answer is already there. And it really, really can be a very natural process, but it's just our resistance to it that creates it in a way that we believe, oh my gosh, Ascension, I have to drop all these things, I have to do all of that, when we think of it as such, because we don't see the blessing in it. So my advice here would be, find the blessing in it and allow the truth to show itself naturally, because what we like to do is we really make assumptions as humans. And when we feel hard at a certain moment, we think it's hard and then we define it. But why not just dropping all those labels and just allowing the truth to show what it really was? So maybe, you know, in a few months, you meet a new person, like you said, a relationship, or you start doing the purpose that is more aligned with your soul. And then, you know, clarity will come and then you will go, aha, that's why those things were happening back then. But still, you know, maybe you were going through a lot of difficulty, but it can be like this. Shift can also be instantaneous. So you have to really understand that it can be easy in any moment. You know, it doesn't have to take years and months for you to have an aha moment. Because what you can feel is you can feel gratitude for everything that's happening and trusting that it's happening for your perfect unfoldment, which, of course, on the ascension journey, a lot of things are falling off, but they're not really being lost, because what is falling off is only that which is not in our highest truth and integrity and authenticity. So it's really a blessing.
Now, I'm all about getting off the couch, because I do this show because I want people to find, whether it's you, your website, your teaching, that just ignites them. So what advice, what one action can people take after the show before they go to bed or tomorrow morning to reawaken their brilliance?
Well, I really would just say to do one thing that will bring you closer to yourself. And, you know, for me, a lot of times I'm noticing when you're becoming like, you know, you step out of there, you're being this way shower for others. And people, a lot of times they associate themselves with you. They kind of identify. But I always tell them, you know, don't look for the messenger. Look for the message. Look for what resonates. Leave the rest behind. So I would say it's very important to start tuning into your inner feeling, to your inner senses that go beyond just these five senses. So if you were watching the show or anything else, or stumble across my webpage or whatever, know that after it, or after every other information that comes across you, turn yourself inwardly and always say, okay, what did I get from it, but not from outside, but what really came here from the depths? What am I feeling about this? Because, you know, people who are sharing certain things and they will be coming from that highest aspect will always say, don't follow me, don't take what you've just heard, you know, be discerning, take what feels good, leave the rest behind, because again, people are also at different stages. Sometimes, you know, people don't like my videos and they come after and saying, oh my gosh, you know, just this woman that we had interview with last time, she said at first I wasn't even, drawn to your videos, but then she was ready and she was like, oh my gosh, she's speaking about things I really feel in myself. So take what feels good for you in the moment. Don't try to be somewhere out there or somewhere along the path, because where you are now is perfect, because without this step, there is no next step, and so forth. So that's what I wanted to say. That's really important, to tune inwardly always after everything, to process from within.
I want to share a comment we had that I missed somehow from Kit Stuka. Hi, guys. Soul power could be looked at as the ability to accept divine love and send it out, learned through the lives one has loved. It's an aspect of love. Polona rocks.
Oh,
so I wanted to share that. That's awesome. Now, Polona, tell us, how can people find out more information, website, where can they learn more, and what you have to offer?
Well, I just, like I say, I just share whatever I'm guided to share in any moment. You can find me on www.ascension-pioneers.org. There are other pages associated with that there as well. Also on Facebook, if you type in Ascension Pioneers, I post daily there if I'm available. And also, you can join the forum. You can join, I created the forum mostly for people to connect, because it's kind of hard for me to be active in all things, because what I like to focus on more is beingness. Because what people are going to see in this stage is the more you drop all the doingness, the more abundance you create, because you're actually aligning yourself more, plugging into more and more. And that's why nature is so important. To constantly, that's why I like to stress this so much. After every information you read, even if it's from me or anyone else, retreat inwardly, go to nature, and then feels what's coming from you. So that's my biggest offering, is to help to guide people more and more within.
And there's lots of good stuff. I follow her on Facebook. She's got a YouTube channel, so we put her website up there, so please check her out. And I want to thank you, Polona, first guest from Europe. Woohoo! Trooper, getting up in the middle of the night. This was awesome. I'd look forward to this for a while. And, if you're up for it, hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Yeah, and what a wake-up call it was from Spirit, right?
Yeah, no joke. The Spirit is trying to set me in panic mode a little bit. But you know what? I came through with flying colors, so it's good. I'm getting more in the moment.
Yeah, and it's a good example that I can share with people here, how really attuned beings we are once we start trusting, once we're really plugged in. Because I was supposed to wake up at 2:30 a.m., so I could do the pre-call. And for some reason, my phone alarm clock didn't work. But I was awakened anyway. It was like the shock, I gotta wake up. I look at the phone, oh my gosh, I'm 15 minutes late, but I can still make it. It's like this force woke me up, because all is within. Like I say, we don't need these external things. Maybe just on a certain level we need them, but then more and more we're tuning into, we're seeing it's all happening naturally anyway. So if it's meant for me to be in the show, I'll be awakened anyway. So this is the part that for me was a real confirmation where I am on my journey. It was like, so trusting yourself and your spirit. Because before I went to bed, I made a prayer. I said, I really pray that I just wake up no matter what. I'm there for the show. And obviously it worked, even though my alarm clock didn't work. So that was a nice example I wanted to share.
It is. It's a wonderful example. And I'm grateful that you said that prayer, because I would have been sweating bullets. But again, you know what? It all works out as it should. I'm really working on going with the flow. And again, I want to thank you. We'll have you back on the show. I thought this was very enlightening. And every time I talk or read your stuff, I learn a lot. So I'm most appreciative.
Yeah, we all learn from each other. Like I say, it's a co-creation, everything we do.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I want to remind everyone, check out our events page. Our next online Thrive event is going to be about overcoming procrastination. I'm all about getting off the couch. Early bird special ends Sunday. We've got a great panel of experts to help you overcome procrastination from a body, mind, spirit perspective. Because I do the get off the couch segment every show, because what drives me to do this show is I know every single one of you out there that's watching and listening has something great inside of you, and I want to see that happen. I want you to get motivated to do that. And no excuses. We're going to record it. So if you're in Slovenia with Polona, you have up to 7 days to watch it afterwards. So I want to create, she has Ascension Pioneers. I have Get Off the Couch Pioneers. All right, everyone. We'll see you here next week. Bye now.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays 9 a.m. till noon. Carrie's Psychic Cafe with Carrie Silkowski, Sundays 8 till 9 p.m. Health Inn with Debbie Bruck, Mondays 11 a.m. till noon. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays 8 till 9 p.m. One Chic Mama with Mary Michelle, Wednesdays 4 till 5 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays 9 till 10 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.